Welcome to another episode of Take It to the House. I am Coach Drew Robison, and today I have a special guest, a friend of mine that I've gotten to know pretty well in the last few years. I've known of Buddy for a long time, and we kind of go back a really long way in terms of how we grew up, and we know a lot of the same people and kind of grew up in the same community. But Buddy Alexander is here with me today. Buddy, thanks so much for spending a little bit of time with me. And one of the things that I'm moving into, and talk to you a little bit about this in terms of kind of what I sort of feel, called to do in terms of helping people, is with a lot of years coaching and having been a dad, gone through the whole process, got 2 out of college now, still my youngest is in high school, but the whole process of, why are we parenting? What is it that are our primary goals as parents? And then how does athletics kind of play a role in that? And I know for you and for me and for a lot of adults, athletics, the field, the gym, there was no more meaningful classroom to us. And the classroom was very important, and academics is very important. But I think it's kind of interesting that, to me, the whole educational process is everything that shapes us into what we hope we will be, or what God has in store for us as adults. And particularly as a Christian, and having a Christian family, we're interested in what are God's plans, and how can I find out, discern what those things are, and then kind of join Him in that. And you have adult children, I have adult children, we're both granddads now, and it's really fascinating, I think, to see how that plays out after we've kind of tried to figure that out for ourselves. We've seen that whole process unfold. At least the childhood portion is over for our kids, and now we're starting to see a whole new process with our kids becoming young parents. But in this first segment, I would love to just for you to catch me up on maybe some details, but also whoever's listening to know a little bit more about you and who you are. You're the athletic director for the middle school at Brentwood Academy here in Nashville. You've been at Brentwood Academy for a long career, and you went to school here. But tell us, how'd you come to Brentwood Academy, and what was your sort of experience as a student athlete coming through, and then how you got into your career?
Well, like any young kid, young being elementary type school age, school is just a place you went every day. And I was very anxious to get either to recess or have school be over so I could get to a practice. And quote, kids used to just go out and play, and that's kind of the way I grew up in Bellevue. And I was very fond of that community, and it was a really, really good high school. And all my friends in the neighborhood in the area I lived in, either went to Bellevue Middle School or they called it junior high back then.
Right.
That's how old I am, is Bellevue Junior High, Bellevue High School. But during busing, and that was my era. And as I was headed to Bellevue Junior High, I got a letter from Metro government that said that I would not be attending there, that I would be attending another school downtown that I'd never heard of. And so somehow that quickly matriculated to my dad contacting people in our community that there were 3 kids specifically from Bellevue that went to Brentwood Academy, wherever that was. And so he called them to find out about it, and somehow they relayed through a mutual friend, and Coach Flack came to watch one day.
Yeah.
And that happened pretty quickly. And there was no touring of the school at that time because there wasn't much of a school. It was just a building. But
right.
That's really how I would have. I consider myself still a public school person because my entire childhood was built into the Bellevue community. But that's how I ended up here, and it's it was a blessing in disguise, obviously.
Yeah, it is interesting. Probably at this point, and we've talked about this. This audience is not huge. A lot of this audience is based on people that we've known in our lives, just in our circle. I've moved around a little bit, so I've got a little bit of sort of a base of parents that I know in Louisiana and in Maryland and in South Carolina. But for those of those listening who may not know some of the details of Nashville, Tennessee. Nashville has got now. There are numerous private schools in the Metro Nashville area that are tremendous schools. A lot of tremendous schools. I grew up we're basically the same age. I grew up in the 70s, and my older brother is a little bit older than Buddy, but he went to Brentwood Academy. I went to a different school in Nashville in the 80s. But I was familiar with Brentwood Academy, and you were when it was a very small school. Coach Flatt, that you refer to, is a probably about as much as any high school football coach in the history of Tennessee high school football, the most legendary coach in the state. And Coach Flatt is still around, and he still comes to games, and he's certainly he's up there in years, but he's a legend around here. So when you think about coming to a school that you didn't know, you were 7th grade?
Or 7th grade is when yes.
So how difficult was that? Because you were probably leaving a group of friends that you'd been in school with. Did the fact that and was football kind of your main thing at the time?
I played all three, and
football, basketball, baseball.
Loved them equally. So
okay, so you loved all sports. Did the sports aspect of it sort of override the anxiety of the social challenge of leaving your friends, or was that a big deal at all?
It became a big deal after I left. Like I said, there were 3 or 4 kids from Bellevue already here, so I quickly adapted to them or with them to how things are done, and it was a very easy integration. Actually, I really don't get anxiety if it involves sports. So
yeah.
that was my thread to everything, and they just showed me how to do school once I got here. But just being able to come over here in the summer to be with the team and train and stuff like that made it an easy transition. My entire friend group in the Bellevue community, as the kids would say, they throw shade on me all the time. They were, I don't know if I don't know if I'd necessarily call it jealousy, but I got an earful every time Brentwood Academy beat, that community and anything.
Right.
So it was interesting.
Yeah, and so did your love of sports come from your parents, or was that just something that you just gravitated toward yourself? You're the oldest.
There's only 2 of us, and I am the oldest. And now my dad played basketball in high school, but he was not a big sports guy. He grew up on a farm, and he only played basketball with non-contact, kind of now. So
right.
But I was not. It's just something I gravitated to as a kid. I was not reared in. I don't have a lot of athletes in my family. I had an uncle that was pretty good in football and basketball at Franklin. Had an aunt that was pretty good in basketball. I mean, there's nobody in my family tree that screamed athletics. But I mean, from the time I was in Knoxville as 2-3-year-old. I mean, I've got pictures of being at Neyland Stadium and throwing the ball and everything else. I've been around it my whole life. And
did you play for the Bellevue Steelers?
Of course I played for the Bellevue Steelers.
Yeah, so
after there was a Don Wade team before that.
Okay, well the Bellevue Steelers were a big deal in the 70s and 80s. And they were a great, and I guess they still are, right? A football program.
I think they're functioning. I don't think they're quite
but they're still the legacy of the youth football of the Bellevue Steelers.
Yeah.
Well, interesting. And so your parents, would it be safe to say, they recognized your inclination towards sports? They knew you loved sports. They saw an opportunity because they didn't really want you to go to a random school that probably wouldn't have been as good of a fit for you. You got here, you acclimated yourself pretty well because the culture here was sort of, your friendships were around the team and workouts and things like that. So as you sort of progressed through your high school years, what I know about you is that you, I guess, baseball kind of began to elevate itself as your sport that you felt like you wanted to play in college, and you wanted to kind of pursue that. So what was your, kind of a summary of how did you sort of figure out that baseball was the sport over football and basketball, and then how did that sort of affect your next step after high school?
Well, I've put it to a lot of people this way, that baseball, it was instinctive to me. It was natural. I can't say that, I quote trained in baseball. I grew up playing. We had a great program in Bellevue and Little League and Babe Ruth and all that, and it was all natural. I don't have to think. I don't have to. It's just react, and it just seemed second nature to me. But my passion was football. Like, that's what got my juices going, and even in a coaching element, that always held true. I felt like, baseball, I'm very confident, and I'm very I don't have to think about a practice plan. I don't have to think about what next in this game. It just happens. Football is that it brings in a lot of emotion, and it gets your juices flowing, and the passion that you see on a Saturday, that I felt that in football. So I had a chance to walk on in both sports at the collegiate level. The baseball opportunity was at a much higher level, and I just knew in my heart of hearts that's what my skill set was geared toward.
And you were an infielder.
I was an infielder and a pitcher, so I was both, and even that has a recruiting element to it, because I passed up a lot of opportunities to go as a pitcher, and my parents are crazy because there was money attached to that, but I passed that up because I wanted to go play in the SEC, so that's what I did.
Well, let's pause real quick, and we're going to move in the next segment into college, and then eventually, parenting and so forth. But I'm here with Buddy Alexander. This is Take It to the House.